I am going to introduce our first presenter and panel, which will focus on community and how it impacts children's literacy. We'll hear how the literacy crisis affects every community in our nation, large and small, rural and urban, and how, with a collective and concerted focus, we can solve this problem. Leading our discussion today will be Deneen Tor, Senior Director of Community Initiatives at Dollar General. Having joined Dollar General in 1999, I keep citing all these dates. If I were being introduced, I wouldn't want one date. I am very young. I've only been doing this for 25 years. Deneen now oversees corporate and foundation giving, employee volunteer engagement efforts, and cause-related partnerships for Dollar General's 44-state market. Deneen has designed and executed charitable initiatives for Dollar General that have raised more than $100 million for charity. Under her leadership, the Dollar General Literacy Foundation has flourished into a national thought leader and has invested in programs that have helped more than 10 million individuals learn to read, prepare for their high school equivalency, and learn English. Deneen is the current board chair for International Nonprofit and the largest adult literacy and basic education membership organization in the U.S., Pro Literacy Worldwide. She also serves on the board of directors for the Nashville Public Library Foundation, Nashville Public Television, and the Governor's Book From Birth to Foundation. Please join me in welcoming Deneen to tell us more about community engagement and lead this very exciting panel.
Good morning. It is so great to be here with you guys today. I'm so excited. You know, anytime I get to talk about literacy, I get excited. And as a matter of fact, I don't know, Dane may have already slipped out, but in his raspy voice, how many of you guys have seen Jerry Maguire? That movie? Okay. So in his raspy voice, when he said there is no silver bullet, that this is a complex issue and it needs a complex solution, he had me at hello. I was like, Dane, you're the man, right? You know. But seriously, I'll get back to my notes. I will stray from them again, though. I will forewarn you. But it is so great to be here. And as you know, as Alicia just shared with you, I get the great honor and privilege as part of my role at Dollar General of overseeing the Dollar General Literacy Foundation, and that is so cool. And for all of you guys who are not familiar with our foundation, because there's a few faces in the room that I don't think I've met yet, our foundation was founded in honor of J.L. Turner, who is a co-founder of Dollar General Corporation. What most people don't know, though, is that J.L. was functionally illiterate with only a third-grade education. When his father, being the oldest son in the family, when his father was killed unexpectedly in an accident, he had to drop out of school in third grade to take care of the family farm. He grew up during the Great Depression, and he saw people having to make those tough decisions and having to go out without the basics in life, and he said, life should not be that way. And so he created a company, him and his son, where individuals can go and get the basics they need in life, where they don't have to make those tough decisions at prices they can afford. And that company now, that he started in 1939, is the company you recognize today as Dollar General, the Fortune 150 company with more than 15,000 stores across the nation, which is so cool, right? What a beautiful story. What a beautiful story. And in his honor, the foundation was established in 1993. So since its inception, the foundation has awarded more than $160 million to programs that have helped more than 10 million individuals learn to read, prepare for their high school equivalency, or learn English. And the foundation funds programs for individuals of all ages. We like to say from the twinkle to the wrinkle. We've got something for you. We're there. You know, so whether we're supporting the 2-Gen or family literacy initiatives, helping youth read at grade level, or helping adults who, for whatever reason, never had the ability to learn to read or receive their high school equivalency, their high school diploma, you know what? We're there. And our funding structure is a blended model that awards approximately 60% of our funding to grassroots efforts and 40% to national or regional initiatives. And some of the guiding principles that drive our work that I thought you might be interested in, wanted to share those with you. We truly believe, at the very heart of who we are, that it's not about what could have been or should have been. It's about what can be. You know, it is about helping open the doorway that leads individuals to where they are destined to go, because we are all destined for greatness. And there's a very strong belief that literacy and a solid educational foundation are the great equalizers, that they truly have the ability to level the playing fields in life. And we believe this issue is a lot bigger than a workforce issue. We truly believe it is a civil right and a moral imperative. So while we're proud of all that we've accomplished and all we've been able to do, there's a lot left for us still to do. The need is great, and we are there. And I want to tell you, they asked me to tell you a little bit about how we're investing, what we're doing, some best practices. But before I do that, what I'd really like to do now is show a video so you can see some of the work that we're doing and how we're changing lives.
I'm 47 and I'm started all over again. We work with students from all walks of life, and they have to believe in themselves, and sometimes they don't. We have to believe in them enough for them.
I kind of had to learn certain things on my own and just kind of drifting through life at a young age, pretty much. You know, I feel like I didn't really have nobody.
At one point, someone I feel let them down, didn't redirect them or guided them correctly, and here is my chance to redirect them and to provide them with those tools.
But I asked them, well, what is it that you want to do next? You know, do you want to go to college? What do you want to study? Because once they start looking beyond that exam, then they have something to reach for.
There's a lot of fear in coming back to school. I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. I wasn't sure if I could do it, but the teachers, the counselors, they help you.
Mr. Myers really helped me. Once you get that and know you have a support system, it helps you. Because it's like, okay, I'm doing this for me, and I'm doing this for that person who believes in me.
Miss Araceli, she gave me direction. Every single time I had a question, she'll put down whatever she's doing and she'll come over and she'll sit there with you until you get it.
We did it. She made it. And for me to see her with that cap and gown on, that meant, Nia, you are graduating.
It was giving me a whole nother confidence level. And when I got on the stage, it's like a whole nother Nia just came out.
Getting your high school diploma, it is a life-changing experience. It really is. It catapults you to where you want to go.
Some people think, well, maybe it's really not that big of a deal, but it really is. It changes your whole life.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Wow, right? Yeah. You know, every time I see that video, it moves me, and I've probably seen it a million times, and I was actually there when we shot the video. But the reason why it moves me, it's not just about the fact that it features students and teachers who have benefited from our foundation. These are not actors, these are real people. But it highlights the fact that I think is critically important as we continue the dialogue and conversation across the country, that no one does it alone. As a matter of fact, we can't do it alone. And so, you know, whether it is through the support of fabulous teachers and amazing nonprofits, or the support of family and friends, or the generosity of donors who support programs that are changing lives, we all have a role we can play in helping build a brighter tomorrow. And whether that is generating policy changes that can help advance the field, funding programs that allow for access to quality instruction for students and professional development for teachers, or volunteering on the front line to provide direct service for students in need, we all have a valuable role. And you heard some of the statistics already, right? And you guys know it because you live this, right? We're facing a skilled worker shortage. The skills gap is continuing to expand. We also know that a mother's educational attainment rate is one of the leading indicators of a child's educational success. 63% of fourth graders across the nation are not proficient in reading. You heard Alicia say 25 million children in the United States are not proficient. 36 million adults across the United States need our help. They don't have the basic literacy skills they need. Those statistics are staggering, and I could go on and on. There are more and there are more. What we see is there's a direct link between the adult and the family and the child. That's why we do the twinkle to the wrinkle, right? Because we see how they're interconnected. We see how that plays into the current workforce, to the future workforce, and into our communities. So instead of being overwhelmed by the statistics, which are very easy to do, by the way, what if we looked at it at over 1 million opportunities to have a meaningful impact? What if we changed our perspective? An impact that will last a lifetime, that will change the conversation at the dinner table, improve the workforce, and strengthen communities. And the question becomes not why literacy, but where to start, right? So we changed that. It's not about justifying why, but where do we start? And that will be uniquely different for each organization. And once you determine the geographic market, the student demographics, and the ultimate goal you want to attain, the question becomes, how do you best design your efforts to meet the needs of your target audience, to meet the students? So some of the goals that we are focused on right now are increasing access to instruction, enhancing or strengthening the quality of instruction, eliminating barriers that might prevent or impair learning, helping address the skilled worker shortage by increasing basic educational skills, and identifying partners that can help us accomplish these critical goals. So what we've learned over the past 25 years is that it is very hard to accomplish your goals alone. And whether you call it collective impact or partnership or collaboration, when we work together, we rise higher. And as you design your efforts and identify the key players for your partnership, it's important to clearly understand the role and strength of each of the key organizations, right? But what I would encourage you to do is not only listen to their strengths and their challenges, but also when you have that conversation with them, ask them about their dreams. Encourage your partners to think beyond the boundaries and borders of their current work and financial limitations. In a perfect world, how would they improve, enhance, or extend their efforts? And sometimes the restrictions of what we believe we will never be able to do keeps us from accomplishing what we can do. So eliminate that barrier from the dialogue. But in addition to having meetings and conversations with the administrators, educators, policymakers, and social service providers, don't forget one of the most critical voices, the voice of the student. I would encourage you to not take the word of someone who is speaking on behalf of students, but talk to the students directly if you can. And that's very, very important, not because others don't sympathize or understand their students, but sometimes hearing from the students directly can give you a new insight that can help you design efforts and truly meet students' needs at a variety of meaningful levels that you may not have been aware of without speaking directly to them. You understand it differently when you talk to them. Not at them, but with them. And so I will give you a couple of examples that we have created based off conversations we've had with students. So we talked to several students across the United States, and these were all adult learners, and we found that one of the primary issues that was preventing individuals from participating in classes was simply not knowing where to go. The very simple thing. We know about most of the time you have transportation, childcare, work, and life that gets in the way. But one of the big barriers was simply not knowing where to go. So we thought we can do something about that, right? We can address this issue. So we reached out to Pro-Literacy and the National Center for Families Learning, and we created the National Literacy Directory. Pro-Literacy provides the phone referrals, NCFL manages all the web-based elements of the directory and membership. To encourage organizations to join the directory, organizations who want to apply for funding from the Dollar General Literacy Foundation, they must have a National Literacy Directory number. Otherwise, they're not eligible. And if organizations don't update their information on a regular basis, they're removed. They're not in the directory anymore. So we put another carrot, another incentive, but then we said, you know what? Oh my gosh, now we have this fabulous thing that's been created. They've done an amazing, wonderful job. So proud of this directory, but nobody knows about it. How do we get awareness, right? How do we drive them there so people will use it, the students will use it? So we entered a partnership with the Ad Council, and you just saw that amazing video, right? That's from that campaign. So we could generate awareness, so that we could help tell that story, so we could get it out broadly and say, we're here for you when you need us. Let us help you take that first step. And we're very proud to say that through the efforts of those 3 national partners and our collaboration, over 1 million individuals have received referrals to programs in their hometown community since we launched that campaign. But it started with talking to 1 student, 10 students, and seeing across the country a common need and how we could take the resources that we have, because we're not educators, and maybe create a solution. And now over 1 million people have been helped. And that's pretty cool, right? So we're very excited about that. And on the youth front, wow, some great things are happening. You know, we were sitting there one day and we were talking about literacy, and we saw this statistic that said that access to print materials, not poverty, was a leading indicator in a child's future literacy and educational success. Access to print materials. It wasn't an economic thing. It was an access issue. And again, we thought, we can do something about that. We can help get books into the hands of children. Because we knew that as we were sitting there, we serve a lot of families that have a lot of month left at the end of their money. They're having to stretch those dollars every single day. And then with a lot of families that we know and that we serve across the country, sometimes having a book, buying a book to them is a luxury. That means they have to go without something else. And to us, we strongly believe that a book is a luxury that no home or no child should be without. So you know what we did? We took that belief, that statistic about access to print materials, our belief in those individuals that we serve every single day, and we said, let's help marry them. And we called Reading is Fundamental, and guess what? They said, we can do it. We can help you. And we're like, all right, you guys are amazing. So with the help of them, right now we've identified 50 rural communities across the country that we're helping. We're providing 3 book distributions per year in those 50 communities, over 32,000 children, over 100,000 books per year, and we've been doing that for over a decade. And we're making a difference. We hear it from the families, we hear it from the teachers, we hear it from community leaders, how something that may seem so simple can have a lasting impact. And we're so grateful so grateful for that. But then we said, you know what, that's so wonderful, we love it. We love what we're doing, we love getting the books into homes of children. But you know what, how do we create some scale around this? How do we do more? And whether it is thriving readers, reluctant readers, how do we get that love of reading and continue to develop that skill with more individuals? And so once again, who was there? Reading is Fundamental. So they came to us and they said, we have this brilliant idea. And it's called Literacy Central. And we're like, it is brilliant. And so obviously we put some funding behind it. And guess what? Now, through this very beautiful partnership, how many of you are familiar with Literacy Central before? Oh my gosh, isn't it incredible? So I don't even really need to tell you, but for those of you who are not, it's a free digital resource for parents and teachers that provide access to activities, games, lessons plans, video paired with classic and popular K-6 books. And you can search by Common Core Standard, Lexile level, theme, grade level, or keyword to find your favorite author and illustrators, and then download free resources designed specifically for that book. Lesson plans for teachers. We've helped the teachers, we've helped the classrooms, we've helped the parents and the kids all in one time. And we've created scale because it didn't matter if you were urban, suburban, or rural, you can have access. That is so phenomenal. It's a beautiful resource, and if you haven't already been there, I hope you will all check it out. So one of the reasons that we truly love RIF is that our funding of Reading is Fundamental. We were able to impact organizations both on a grassroots and national level. We were able to meet so many families and students where they are when they needed us. And for that, we are truly glad that they helped us extend our reach across the United States. For us, that was a real win. And I always know that when I get up here and I start talking about some of the work that we've done, and I realize that some of it comes with a pretty big price tag, there's always somebody in the room who says, thank you so much for sharing that, but it's not realistic. I don't have those financial means and I can't do what you can do. And my response to you is I want to challenge that thought. Each one of us and our organizations have a different ability to serve. Recognize your ability and own it. I don't care if you're Discovery Education, Pro-Literacy, Barbara Bush, National Geographic, Reading is Fundamental, or if you're a huge advocate and volunteer. We all have a different role we play, but a very critical role. So I want you to own it. You want to know why? Because great philanthropists are not those who give the most money, but those who give the most heart. And what I want you to do is use the best of who you are to serve others, and where you need support, find others to complement your skills and meet the needs together. That's when we win, right? If you have a bunch of money, it's just a bunch of money without brilliant people to lead the charge and be there on the front lines. If you have a bunch of people on the front lines, you're still going to get amazing things done, probably more than you could with just money alone, but they need little money to take it to scale. We all work together. So, a few key thoughts that I'd like to leave with you regarding what we've learned about best practices in delivering literacy gains are the following. 1, when trying to meet the needs of a specific geographic area, each community has its own nuances and beautiful differences, and one size does not fit all. For true long-term sustainable impact, you must customize to meet the needs of the local community, and what worked in Ardmore, Oklahoma is not going to work in Zanesville, Ohio. Know your market. We learned that from experience. Now, there are things you can plug and play. This is how you build a beautiful collection, literacy collection. This is how you deliver this type of instruction. But to really have that sustainability, you have to engage that community, know who they are, and customize it to meet their unique needs. My next thing that I want to share with you is don't be afraid to be bold and think outside the box. When we realized that the adult literacy need cannot be met through the current bricks and mortar system, we said we wanted to do something about it. So we partnered with the Barbara Bush Foundation and the X Prize to incentivize teams to create an app that would teach adults to read using their mobile phone. Organizations came forward and told us we'd lost our mind, but this could not be done. As a matter of fact, they sent a letter to my CEO with a few of their names listed on it, a whole list of their names. And some of them I still remember. And anyways, the thing is, first of all, we love teachers. There is nothing better than that one-on-one interaction with the teacher. That is always first and foremost. That's always what we want for everybody. But there's so many individuals out there who don't have access to that and will continue to not have access to that. So how do we say, you know what? We're here for you. Where you are, when you need us most, when you're ready, how do we not leave them behind, but how do we uplift them and serve? So we created the X Prize, and when they said it couldn't be done, guess what? We didn't pay a single team any money. As a matter of fact, they had to pay $100 to say they wanted to be a part of the competition. We had 109 teams from 15 different countries sign up. They realized what a global issue this was, how important this is. Now we are down to 5 finalists, 3 from the United States, 1 from Hong Kong, 1 from India, and things are phenomenal. Let me tell you, we set some very, very aggressive goals, so we still have a ways to go before we're going to realize whether or not we have a winner and champion, but we've already won. Before we ever get there, we have already won, and let me tell you why, and I can say that confidently. 1, we were bold enough to think outside the box, not be stuck with where we currently are, but look for solutions. When we did that, we had teams who came forward. They changed the marketplace. Now we have direct-to-consumer products that didn't exist before in the adult literacy space. We have organizations creating blended learning models that didn't exist before, and seeing the power and the role of technology in delivering educational content to adults. We also have ed tech investors who have come into the adult ed space. They weren't there before. As a matter of fact, one of our teams got over $1 million a couple of weeks ago from an investor. So we're changing the landscape, we're changing the dynamics, we're changing the conversation. So whether we get a winner, whoever the winner is in 2019, we've already won. So think bold, and when people tell you can't do it, that means you might be onto something crazy that just might work, right? And we might not get it all right, but we'll learn along the way, and we'll make great things happen. And then The most important thing that I could share with you in your efforts to advance literacy and basic education is to always, always, always keep students at the center of your work and let their voice be a guiding light. And I'm going to share a quick story with you. So my husband and I went to South Africa. We're on a trip. While we're there, there's a big news story. The news story is about a U.S. pharmaceutical company that had come over. They'd built some wells so that these villages could have clean drinking water. But that's not the news story. The news story, it's a year later, and they're coming in to see what impact they've had. All the wells have been dismantled. All the wells have been dismantled. So they asked one of the villagers, they said, why did you tear apart these wells? We brought you clean drinking water so you can have a healthy life. We can improve, the quality of life for you and your family. And the individual said that we appreciate the wells, but what we really needed was the metal that those wells were made from to put roofs over our house so when the rain came, our floors didn't turn to mud and the mosquitoes came and harmed our children. What we really needed was metal for our roofs. So when you design your efforts, make sure that you're building roofs before you build your wells. Make sure you understand the need of those you are there to serve and never let their voice be silent, but be at the center of all that you do. And amazing things will begin to happen. That's when the real work begins. So, I've talked way too long. They're about to buzz me on the timer here. I've seen the signs back in the back telling me to stop. So I want to thank you so much for letting me share a few things with you. And now we get the chance to hear from some amazing individuals who know a heck of a lot more about how to build beautiful collaborations, partnerships than I do. So I now would like to introduce you to some truly amazing and talented individuals and ask them to join me on stage for a conversation on partnerships and collaborations. So if Courtney, Tanya, and Guy would please join me on stage. Courtney joined the National PTA. She's a member of the National PTA in November 2016 as Director of Programs and Partnerships. Courtney manages the development, implementation, and evaluation of national PTA programs, which aim to encourage and empower families to support student success and improve schools. Courtney manages a highly effective team that develops programs and family education tools in education, health, and wellness, digital safety, literacy arts and education, and STEM. And prior to joining the National PTA, Courtney served as the Executive Director of the Reading Connection, a literacy program for at-risk families in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Courtney lives in Northern Virginia with her husband and 2 small children, and her current reading list includes Blue Hat, Green Hat, and Goodnight Gorilla. Personal favorites. So next we have, sitting to her, the amazing Tanya Tucker from America's Promise Alliance. Tanya is the Chief of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships for America's Promise Alliance and is responsible for overseeing organizational campaigns and initiatives, including Grad Nation, which is phenomenal, right? And Together for Healthy and Successful Schools, a new youth workforce campaign. She's also responsible for engaging the Alliance in organizational campaigns, initiatives, and other efforts that help create the conditions for success for all young people. As a member of the senior management team, she helps to set the strategic direction and priorities of the organization. And prior to joining America's Promise, Tanya served at Educational Services, Inc., directing a portfolio of educational initiatives that focused on service and service learning programs, mathematics and science teaching, and bridging the digital divide. Tanya also spent 9 years at the Association of Science Technology Centers, working on Youth Alive, a grants program that supported museum-based enrichment and work-based learning programs for underserved youth. So please join me in welcoming Tanya. And last but not least, we have the amazing Guy Vickers. So Guy is the president of the PVH Foundation, and he's based in New York City, and he is responsible for global strategic programming and philanthropic partnerships for the PVH Foundation, valued at over $25 million, as well as building a platform for community relations that aligns each of the PVH businesses and brands on a global basis. Prior to PVH, Guy led the Tommy Hilfiger Group's philanthropic interest as president of the Tommy Hilfiger Corporation Foundation for over 15 years, upholding the three main pillars of the foundation: education, health, and youth and culture. And prior to that, during Guy's 19-year tenure at the Georgia Institute of Technology, that's Georgia Tech for the rest of us, he was responsible for science, technology, engineering, and math initiatives, and designing pre-college and recruitment strategies to increase engineering retention. And he's won some phenomenal awards, and if you win these kind of awards, they deserve to be recognized and called out, so I'm going to share this with you too. He won the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science. He won the Rush Philanthropic Arts Foundation Annual Rush Hearts Award for Outstanding Community Service. Along with Tommy Hilfiger, he received the prestigious Trumpet Award, which honors African American achievers and those who support the African American experience. And he also won the King Legacy Award for international service for his work with the Millennial Villages Project in Sub-Saharan Africa. He's an absolutely amazing man. We have an incredible panel here, and I can't wait for you to get to know them. So I'm going to come sit down. I'm going to take this water with me.
This is good.
So, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad you guys are here. These are all my friends. And we just would like to learn more about your Scorpio. If you like long walks on the beach. No, just joking. But you know, you've been with the PTA for a little while now. You're doing amazing things to engage. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your best practices in developing meaningful partnerships and collaborations that have sustainable impact?
Sure, thank you for being here. I'm delighted to see everybody. Interesting PTA, for those who don't know that there is a national PTA. We are the governing organization for 24,000 local PTAs across the country, and we have about 4 million members across the United States, and also in the DoD as well. So everything we do has to be scale, right? Coming from an organization that was regional, and now being at an organization that's national scale is the very first thing that we're thinking of. And the way that we do that is through partnerships. Partnerships not only with our nonprofit collaborators and our corporate partners, but also partnerships with parents. You'll probably hear me be a broken record throughout this, but the importance of family engagement in building the partnership and the relationship with the parents in order to have childhood educational success is key. So earlier when we were talking about what works well in certain areas, one great way to find that out is not only talking to the child, but talking to the parents. So regularly our team is on the ground talking to our different regions. So again, you referenced Ohio. We're talking to folks in North Dakota and Florida about what's already working, who are they partnering with, and being able to provide relevant resources to those families and make sure that they are culturally relevant to where those folks are. Not only culturally relevant, but what are we doing in terms of translation services? I think, I dare say this, it's being recorded, but National PTA, right now we're working on translating in Spanish. However, we know there's so many other languages that we need to translate to. My child's school, I have a rising kindergartner, or just started kindergarten, and I went to my PTA meeting and they said that there are over 26 different languages spoken, right? So what as a national organization are we doing to address those cultural needs that are really happening on the ground? So that's what we're currently trying to be mindful of, and working with groups like RIF to take their materials and bring them to our local PTA so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They don't have to think about how to do this themselves, but we provide them with those relevant resources to help them.
Awesome. You know, and Tanya, for you, what is one way that your organization has committed to supporting literacy on a national or local level? First, before you do that, give us a little bit of an overview of America's Promise, and then tell us what you're doing on a national level.
Absolutely, happy to. America's Promise Alliance is a national organization, and we're really about creating the conditions of success for every young person. So we take a very holistic view about what young people need to succeed and thrive. And not only are we about every young person succeeding, we also take the other point of view of, and every adult has a role in making that happen. So we are a large cross-sector alliance working with over 450 national partners, but as well as community level folks, state level, regional. And the work we do is really to be a catalyst organization for all of those things that young people need. And literacy obviously being a very important foundation to that. Our conditions of success we call the 5 promises. Every young person needs a caring adult in their life. They need safe places to learn and grow, a healthy start, effective education, obviously literacy, a foundation to that promise. But then they also need opportunities to give back to their communities. And so as part of our alliance, we work with partners who, many of them, focus on literacy issues in one way or another. RIF being a great example, but in addition to RIF, we work with folks like First Book and Campaign for Grade Level Reading, Reading Partners, and many others. And for us, we want there to be a synergy of what is it that those partners are doing, learning, so that can inform the work that we do. What are we learning, hearing on the ground at the national level that could help inform your work? And then how do we take all of that, those best practices, the resources, and really amplify and disseminate that on a broad level? So that's some of the things we do to try to work on the literacy issue at a national level. But we also work at a local level because kids don't live at a national level. They live in neighborhoods and communities. And so we very much want to meet each community where they are and really build on the assets there, listen to what it is are their priorities. And so we've been running a campaign for the past dozen years called Grad Nation, which is really about how do we increase the high school graduation rate in this nation to 90%, and have been making lots of great progress. But framing that issue as one, not an end goal for young people, but just a key milestone, and not just the responsibility of folks in the schools, right? It's not just the teacher, not just the principal, but what can parents do? What can your local business owners do? You know, what can your friends and neighbors do? So there's a role for everyone. So we have been working with communities to look at what are the issues in our community around increasing high school graduation rates and helping spur cross-sector conversations and actual problem solving around those issues. And many of the communities that we've engaged over the years have identified literacy as one of those top priorities and bringing different folks around the table to really talk about, you know, what are some creative solutions we can do around this. So that's some of the work we've been doing at the local level as well.
Awesome.
That is amazing. You know, how many of you guys have heard of Grad Nation? Isn't that incredible? Yeah, let's give them a round of applause for the Grad Nation work.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful. And I love that you're listening, you're going deep into the communities and listening to their concerns, their needs, and addressing it in their hometowns in a way that's meaningful to them. I think that is so critical and so powerful. So Guy, you have done you've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of beautiful things with the PBH Foundation and through your career as well. So when you look at ways to, first, I want you to give us a little bit of an overview of where you are in PBH and what their philosophy is, kind of what they focus on, and then what you look for as you develop and build national relationships.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I am very young still, even at 60. Even though I'm 67, I'm still very young. You know, PVH Corp is a global company. We are made up of 2 premier retail fashion companies, Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. And then we have the heritage brands, which comes from Van Heusen, Izod, Arrow, Speedo, Olga, Warner's. It goes on and on and on. It's a $9 billion company with over 35,000 associates. And one of the things you heard, I was the president of the Tommy Hilfiger Corporate Foundation. Tommy and I grew up in a very large town called Elmira, New York, maybe 20,000 people. And we always networked and stayed in touch while I was at Georgia Tech. And one day we started talking about philanthropy, and I challenged him, how do you want to be remembered? not just as a celebrity, but as giving back. And he said a statement to me that I'll never forget one-on-one when I asked him, because again, when we went to middle school, high school, how's it feel to be, you know, multimillionaire? You've got the fashion models, all this stuff. And he said something that changed my life. He said, you know, the best thing about it, Guy, and I leaned forward and said, tell me. And he said, I can help people. And our conversation changed. And coming from Georgia Tech, working in the STEM environment, I challenged him to say that, you know, the best way that you can really build a legacy is through education, early learning education. And thus my career went from a nonprofit person to a corporate person, which I thought that if I ever got to where the money was, it would be easy. Well, it's not, because you have to say no 85, 90% of the time to all these wonderful programs coming in. We were purchased by PVH and became part of the PVH family. And so now I'm responsible for all philanthropic work global-wise. Look, we believe in giving back. We have 75% of our associates are females. Our platform is women and children. And one of the reasons why our global partner is Save the Children is because it talks about early learning. Another driving force for us is that we have a young workforce, and with our millennials who are constantly challenging us about ways that they can get involved. So we have a lot of associate engagement. We look for associate engagement opportunities. And I'll be honest with you, hope, Alicia, you won't mind. One of the reasons I'm here today is that we were challenged to take a look at RIF. We talked to Alicia. We were so impressed with what you are doing, and I kind of, hopefully I didn't bogart my way on the program, but I said, if there's any opportunities for me to participate and learn more, because we are looking at a partnership with RIF, and I'm very impressed with what I see and what I'm hearing. So one of the things that we do is we get our associates in the field to see firsthand. It's not, you know, you can put it on on the internet and say, here's what we're doing, and everybody says, oh, okay. But to take associates with you, we have taken them to, we were here in Uganda. We've been to South Carolina. We've been to West Virginia with Save the Children, and we've also been to Central Valley, California with the migrant workers. And when those associates come back, their lives are changed, and they become our ambassadors for the other associates to say, here's why you should give back.
It's amazing. I want to go with you. I mean, don't you
It's
guys?
an investment.
Oh my gosh, don't you want to be a part of that? So, you know, I was listening to all of you talk, and just a minute ago, you were talking about how everything that you do is based on creating skill. Everybody in this room realizes the very valuable, important role of engaging parents, of engaging families, and the overall educational learning process, and having that healthy family connection. And when we think about the PTA, there's probably no organization that has done that better, right? That's who you are. And it's graduated from when I was little, not too long ago, from being just our moms doing bake sales to really an organization and the engagement of families in a beautiful and meaningful and very rich way. So for somebody who's gotten it right and who's doing it well, what is your advice to all of us on how to motivate and engage parents in that meaningful dialogue and that conversation and creating real change?
Thank you. I think we could also be doing it better, right? I think we always are striving to do it better. And one of the ways, a foundational way, is, research is going to back me on this, is asking a parent to get involved. And that sounds so basic, but if you're not asked to join, you might not. If you're not asked to attend, you probably won't. If we're not asking you in your language, there's a disconnect. So the very basic of welcoming all families is key to family engagement, and it's key to PTA success. So I would challenge everybody as kind of a foundational piece there. And then also parents want to feel as though the work that they're doing is valuable, don't we all? It's why we all come to work. It's why we're all passionately involved with our children. But you need to keep that going in order for families to stay engaged and not have it just be a bake sale, to have it be a deeper connection, to have it be every child, one voice, that you are advocating for all children because you know what you're doing has meaningful impact.
Well, that's very, very powerful and very sound advice. You know what? Building off what she just said, the number one reason why they don't come is they're not asked. What's the number one reason why individuals don't donate? They're not asked. They're not asked. That's why they don't donate. So it ties back. You don't engage, you don't donate, you're not involved if you're not asked. So building those powerful, powerful relationships. And you know, Tanya, you were talking to us a moment ago about, you know, all the beautiful work that you've done. And your organization, America's Promise, is really known as a thought leader and a big convener and very deep dive, really making meaningful change across our nation on very substantive issues and important issues. And we're very excited that you have a new workforce campaign that you're launching that addresses the large gap in readiness of young people to enter and succeed in the world. So can you tell us a little bit about that, how it came about and what you're doing?
Absolutely. So yes, we are embarking on a new campaign and are in the process of developing what that is and what it looks like. And it's really based on sort of all of the lessons we've learned over the years with our work around high school graduation and our Grad Nation campaign, the power of uniting different entities, communities, organizations, leaders around a big goal that no one organization or entity or sector could actually achieve alone. There's a lot of power in that, and there was a lot of power in the simplicity of the goal, right? Everyone understands what high school graduation means, whether you're, you know, a parent at the kitchen table with your children or a policy, you know, maker in Congress. So it was something that appealed to lots of different people on lots of different levels. Doing the work with Grad Nation, we heard from young people themselves, right? You talked about, you know, people won't engage if they don't ask. Very true for young people and students if we're not asking them what's happening in their lives and why they're making the decisions they're making. And we heard from young people that one of the reasons that they were disconnecting from their formal education is that they didn't really even see the relevance to, you know, what this was going to lead to, or they didn't feel like, you know, in the communities and perhaps the families that they were a part of, that there really was any hope or opportunity for advancement in the future. And one of the things we heard and came through on the video that you showed, you know, you don't do it alone. Young people felt like they didn't have anybody in their corner. They didn't have folks that they could go to for advice or information or to just share, you know, what was happening with them. So as we look at this workforce issue, definitely, as Dane said, you know, a skills gap, but there's also an opportunity gap. And we think sort of the biggest lever to help fill that opportunity gap is, one, there are too many young people who don't have access to social capital, right? They don't have the relationships or the webs of support that they need to access, to develop the skills that they need for the opportunities that exist, to access the jobs and career networks that'll get them further. So we're really looking at developing a national campaign that, again, would appeal to lots of different stakeholders and leaders, but that really centers around how can we mobilize a broad community to really help more young people, and particularly those young people growing up in challenging circumstances, gain access to that social capital that they need, that we think will unlock their potential and help build the skills and get them the connections that they need to figure out which pathway they want to go on. So we're in the process of developing what that looks like at the national level, what that looks like for engaging communities. One of the great things is that we know we're not starting from zero. Lots of great efforts going on in this realm. So how do we sort of build on the momentum and the energy that's already happening around this issue? How do we lift up what's working? There are lots of great things going on, but we also feel that not enough people know about, what's working and sort of the best practices. So how do we get that out in a broader way? And how do we spur more partnerships and collaborations, both at a national level, so folks like us in this room can be talking together and sharing and figuring out where are our synergies and alignment so we can have greater impact, but at the local level, how can we create and spur more alignment and collaboration, nonprofits, employers, the K through 12 system, post-secondary, and where that's happening, how do we lift that up so folks know what that looks like and what it actually takes to get that started and maintain it so no young person kind of falls through the cracks. So those are the types of things that we're looking at addressing with this national campaign.
Awesome.
That's amazing. You heard Dane talk about the complexity of the issue, and it needs a complex solution. And I love what you're doing, the approach that you're taking. And it's going to be a complex
Yes.
undertaking, right? There's a lot of moving parts, but I'm so grateful that you have the courage to be bold enough to take the lead and make this happen.
We'll need
and we all want to be a
everybody
part
in
of
this room.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we all. Right, I just told you all that you're involved with
That's
this
right.
My husband gets that
Pick up
every
the phone when I
all the
call
time.
after this meeting.
My husband's like, oh my gosh, your told me to do something else. Stop it. But no, I'm very grateful and thankful for your leadership. And just a moment ago when you were talking, Guy, you were talking about how you took some associates, some of your employees, and you took them to beautiful places. You let them have this wonderful active volunteer engagement piece, but that's one time, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you take that? You bring it back into your office. How do you create that meaningful experience for your employees to be engaged, involved, and become these champions? And how is that translating into meaningful impact in your local communities?
Well, we work very close with our comms team, and first of all, the associates that we take, they have to apply, they have to do a video, they have to do an essay. Really? There's a lot of things you have to do to show that you really want to come. Then there's some responsibilities. This is company sponsored, so through use of social media and journals, they are writing and reflecting on their experiences. When they come back, we have our ambassadors now. And those associates are charged to go back. And by the way, when we take the associates, they're from all of our brands, because typically Kelvin wants to do Kelvin things, Tommy, there's these silos. So we bring associates from all of the brands, and they're meeting folks that they have never met before. Oh, you design, oh, you do this, and they begin collaborating, and friendships are developed. But I think more importantly, when they come back, they're charged with making presentations to our executives and to their departments and to other groups that we put them in front of. So they do I call them a dog and pony show in terms of here's our experience. And you can feel the passion that they have when they present. We also, I'm on the executive management team, so one of the things that we do is bring them before our executives, and they do a presentation also so that we can share that information. And once we finish with those kinds of presentations, we now have senior management saying, hey, this is worth the investment. This is something we should get behind. We have what we call community involvement committees, and they are chaired by a president. And I'm an old social worker by education, and we plan with versus for. And a lot of companies will say, here's what we're going to do, and then they wonder why associates aren't excited, they're not volunteering. What we do is bring our associates together to say, here's the platform, here's our mission and vision statement, help us develop what we ought to be doing in our local communities. Now we have buy-in, it's their program, and we step back and they run it with the guidelines, of course, that we have in place. And that's how you strengthen your program, that's how you expand it, that's how you get the passion, and each of those associates are charged with going back and getting one or two more, bringing them to the table. The last thing I'll say is that our company has also, first of all, we have 48 hours of volunteer time that the company has approved, which is fantastic. Most companies don't have 48 hours where employees can volunteer, so that's one plus. The second thing is we have developed what we call BRGs, Business Resource Groups. We have one for upward mobility for women. We have one for Braves, African American Latino associates. We have one for parents. We have another one for LGBTQ. And so these business resource groups are encouraged to come up with programs that will enhance the business and get more people involved. So again, if it's a grassroots, it's not a top-down, although we do have top-down input, but it's more grassroots coming up saying, here's what we want to do and here's how we do it. So it's a win-win, we feel.
Wow, I love that. You're giving your associates the power, the voice, the authority to go and facilitate change.
Yes.
Wow, that's really incredible. That is unique. How many of you guys work in a corporate America? That's unique, right? That's very unique. Instead of being able to tell your associates this is what we're doing, allowing them to be a part of a bigger picture. And the 48 hours is really, really phenomenal.
Yes.
So let's go back and let's talk about building a grassroots campaign. You know, we need skill. We need everybody to be engaged, involved. And one of the things the PTA does, you know, it's parents, but it's also a grassroots movement. So how do you take the vision of being a national leader and pulling together a grassroots platform across multiple communities and be successful? Is there any guidance or advice that you can give to organizations who are looking to have that level of impact?
We're also working on that one. It's being a little bit more successful, right?
We all are, right?
I think one of the models for PTA that has been successful has been the different levels of PTA. And again, before I started PTA, I didn't have any clue that there was a national PTA, I'll be honest with you. And there's, at your local level, it's your school based. Then the next level up is your district council. District council, just like it marries the education system. And then there's the state PTA, and then there's the national PTA. So when you're able to support in leadership development of these leaders on key issues, it's really where you're gonna have success. And starting with your PTAs and what they need, right? So around literacy specifically, we, at our national convention, we bring in local leaders, district, state, they're all having a conversation about what are their needs around literacy. And what we were hearing, a lot of the folks in the room were saying, 7th grade boys, our biggest issue. This 6th to, I won't say 7th grade boys, but around that age, and how can we engage them? And of course, being a Kwame Alexander fan, I'm not sure how many other Kwame Alexander fans there are in the room, right? Like, what are these specific tools that we can give to our PTAs when we know what they need? And then they're getting the support they need, then they feel like they can advocate on that specific issue because they have the resources that they need at the local level. They'll then get involved at their district level because they've had success with their implementation, and then rise to the state. And then that's where you can have state change that Dane was mentioning earlier about working with your local governments to make that change on the advocacy, but really equipping them at the local with resources and programming that they'll see to be effective so they can build within their leadership levels.
So technical and professional development, technical assistance and professional development, getting them there, training them, empowering them, and lifting them. That's so, we all want to be coached, right? We all do, so that's so powerful. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And hopefully we can all do a little bit more of that together, right? You know, and Tanya, you were talking a moment ago about some of the amazing work that you're doing. I can't wait to see what you're going to do on this workforce piece. You know, you shared briefly your Grad Nation initiative, which a lot of us are familiar with. But what were some of the powerful tools and things that you learned from Grad Nation that you're taking forward, that you're leveraging into all of your new relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, particularly being a national organization based in Washington, D.C., it was approaching this work with extreme humility and the understanding that, like, just because you have this campaign that is focusing on increasing high school graduation rates doesn't mean that lots of people haven't been working on this issue before, you know, you put out your press release that, hey, we've got this Grad Nation campaign. So I think approaching each community that we worked with, each national partner, to say, hey, we know you have these resources, these tools, these assets. How do we work together to address this issue in a more impactful way? How do we meet you, Detroit, where you are and build on, you know, your leadership, the energy that you already have, and actually provide support, not sort of top down, you mentioned this, right? Sort of, you know, grassroots up, not top down, let us be the national organization that tells you how to do this. No, let us be the actual national organization that supports you where you are, that provides connection perhaps to resources, expertise that you might not know about or have, and then actually helps champion and celebrate your progress, your success in a very national, visible way. And that's how we got lots of different folks to actually engage with us, to be willing to tell us their stories and reach out to say, hey, we're having a challenge around X. Do you know anybody else who's, you know, cracked this nut that you could connect us to? So some of that is what we're trying to also bring to the workforce issue. And then I think really being grounded in having young people at the center. And what is it that they're experiencing? What is it that they need in the end? In the end, we're an organization that's about young people and what they need to succeed. And so while we want to work closely with employers and the corporate sector in this workforce issue, we also want that grounded in what is it that the young person needs coming into your place of employment? What's the support? You know, what does that mean for you possibly changing some of your practices or policies to retain that young talent once they get there? So making sure that there are, I think, entryways and options for lots of different sectors to engage in this work, but really grounded in the experience and the support that that young person needs, and making sure that we're having lots of opportunity to engage their voice. So like I said, we're in the process of planning what the campaign looks like. We have a steering committee, and we have young people on that steering committee to say, hey, this is what's been working for us, and you know, this actually hasn't been working, and people don't ask us this, or you know, here's what we're, you know, really feeling about a, you know, particular opportunity or lack of opportunity. So making sure that voice is not only there at the beginning, but throughout the work, and encouraging others, whether at the national level or at a local community level, to make sure that they're including that youth voice. It will be key.
Had another Jerry Maguire moment there. Totally had me, Angela.
Help me, help you.
Help me, help you. I'm there for you. Show me the money, right? Show me the money now. No, but I love the fact that you're putting the students at the very center of every conversation, putting them on your steering committee, recognizing the beauty of what everybody brings to that community. And it's not about saying you're doing something wrong, but how we do it right together and creating that solidarity and that unified voice.
Right.
And that is so exciting. Yeah.
And for us, that's how you create scale. It's not sort of one program at a time, but you know, how do we bring it all together and then really see where we have gaps and maybe where we're duplicating things that we don't need to. So that's really important.
I'm very excited. I can't wait to see where all your initiatives are going. These new things are so exciting. And you know, talking about exciting things, I was so excited to hear what Guy was sharing about how he's actively engaging their team, their workforce, and being part of a meaningful solution. It's not a top-down, but it's an all-in approach. And you know, one of the things I think organizations struggle with is how do you measure that success? How do you measure that impact from engagement? And so do you have any words of wisdom, guiding advice that you can share with us around how to measure that impact?
Absolutely, and it's a timely question. I transferred from Tommy to PVH 4 years ago, And when we began looking at assessing where we were, there were no really measurable means of doing that, which was frustrating to me. We could give anecdotal information. Employees said that they were excited. We believe retention plays a role in having associates involved in giving back and working for a company that believes in giving back, but we didn't have the data. So one of the things that I was able to, and one of the things I want to say up front, I kind of alluded to it, but I want to go on record of saying it's imperative that you have a CEO, a chairperson who believes in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And we happen to have a fantastic chairman, Emmanuel Manny-Chirico, who is very thoughtful and understands the importance of giving back, and he takes it very seriously in terms of some of the action. So I was able to talk to our leaders and say to them, look, we need to have, right now everything's manual. We're collecting, and by the way, we have a gift management program where associates can make a contribution to a nonprofit, and the company will match it 50 cents on the dollar up to $2,500. But we don't, it's all manual. So I said, we need to invest in a platform. And we are in the process. We will go live October 3rd next week with a soft launch where associates now can log on. Anything philanthropic related, it's there. It's the foundation. It will show all the programs we're invested in, all the volunteer opportunities one can have. I can go in and I know I have 48 hours. I'll punch in my name. It will say, Guy Vickers, you have volunteered 6 hours. You have 42 hours left. Here's where you volunteered. Here's how many. Here's what you did, the organization. So now we're gathering this data. You have to have some baseline data before you start talking about making changes, particularly, as you know, in corporate America. You just can't come in and say, I want to do something. You have to benchmark it. You have to show the data. So I would encourage all of you, if you don't have a platform system in place, that you should take a look at it. Now, as we work with our nonprofit organizations, when I first came in, as I said, Save the Children was our global partner, so I wanted to see where were the technical progress reports. We didn't have any. Who was our contact person? We didn't know who it was. All of that has changed because, again, we didn't have anyone worrying about it full time, and that's another key measure, recommendation. I would say you have to have a team in place. Mm-hmm. It's a business. Treat it as a business. Run it like a business. For example, when we have quarterly reports or we have Christmas presentations, the foundation and community affairs is always on the program saying, here's what we're doing. That sends a message to associates that it's important. So yes, not only do you have to have reports back from the nonprofits that you're working with, but you need to begin benchmarking what are you doing, where your dollars are being spent, what are the surveys. We survey our associates all the time, getting feedback from them. What do you like? What don't you like? What should we be doing? What are we doing well? And we listen to it, and we try to be flexible enough to make changes as we go.
I love it. That is brilliant advice. That is brilliant, brilliant advice. So thank you for that. We do need the systems and structure in place. We do need to treat it as a business, and we do need to be able to show our own impact, not just those we fund, showing it, feeding it back to us, but what we're doing as well. So we're coming to a close on some of our time together. So I want each one of you, if you don't mind, to take just one moment. We'll just go down the line. And if you have one piece of advice, one thing you want to share with everybody in the room, what would that be? And you get to go first.
Oh, the pressure's on me to go first.
What's your key takeaway?
Well, I guess I'm going to go with being a broken record, but engage parents. Ask them to be involved. Make the ask.
And I would say, the focus of there really is no silver bullet, and it's complex, and so that takes all of us working together in lots of different ways. So the collaboration and the partnership across sectors, I think, is key to move on some of these important issues.
Absolutely.
With my experience, what's profound to me is partnerships, collaborations, and leveraging. You know, if we partner, if we collaborate, sometimes we don't want to work together because we're afraid we might not get our, you know, we're all trying to raise funds sometimes, but if we collaborate and partner and leverage what we know, best practices, tied in with all of the other things, we can really go to scale. We can grow to scale quickly.
Well, that is wonderful. You know, I am so grateful and thankful for all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the beauty that you guys have shared with us through this conversation. I truly am. I appreciate you being here. We have a couple of minutes now, so that if we have any questions from the room, we have a couple of minutes to do that before Alicia's best friend arrives. Do we have any questions for any of the panelists? Please, go ahead.
My name's Jessie. I'm from Scholastic. What's the platform that? Thank you. What's the platform that you use to track the work you're doing, the soft launch that's happening?
It's called Your Cause, and it's in fact, my staff is in meetings now doing some testing with a lot of our financial people. We're also, it's not only are we tracking what our associates will be doing, but now all of our grants and our gift matching programs is going to be run through the system. But it's called Your Cause. Mm-hmm.
In the back? National Geographic?
Or any of you, there's so many different organizations as a partner you can work with. What are the key points that you look for in forming a partnership with an organization?
I mean, I think for us, it's really commitment to the issue, broad commitment to seeing every young person succeed and thrive. And then usually we can figure out where best we're aligned, where best we can make, you know, connections to move the work along. You know, it's why we have such a broad alliance and think very holistically. So there's usually something and some synergy that we find with lots of our different national organizations, and not all at the same time. Not all at the same, you know, level. So partnerships grow over time. They may start at one place and then, you know, grow over time. So I think keeping the lines of communication open to make sure you're not missing opportunities when they appear to deepen that partnership and relationship is key for us.
Wonderful. Do we have any other questions? Over here.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Riff, and just in keeping with the Jerry Maguire theme of the presentation, I would say that scale is the you complete me moment for an organization. So in terms of scale, you know, one of the things that we've tried to do with Literacy Central is to come up with a scalable solution for elementary, for K-12. But there are two constituencies that you mentioned. One is sort of the kids who are maybe going to drop out or not get their high school diplomas, and then also adult education. Those are constituencies that we currently don't reach. If we were looking to reach them in the way that we're trying to do with Literacy Central, how do you reach those groups at scale? Easy question, right?
So I think that's one of the million-dollar questions, right? You know, I think that's beautiful that you're thinking along those lines. And if you want to continue this conversation, because I think it's bigger than the 2 minutes that we have, I would love to talk to you about how we go there. Wonderful. But we're not going to just talk today. We're going to schedule a meeting. We're going to talk about how we do that, because I think that's part of what we were looking at. One, we need to reach the families. We need to reach the adults so that we can also reach the child, right? We need to meet them where they are when they need us most. Some of the learnings that we've seen through the beautiful work of the Barbara Bush Foundation, some of the beautiful things that are happening with getting educational content on platforms that are accessible to everyone through pro-literacy, some of the things that are happening out there, there could be some natural synergies and beautiful ways in which you can engage, and we can leverage that, because they need that access just as much as the K-12 needs that access. So I love that you're thinking there, want to continue that conversation, so very grateful that you asked. But it's bigger than a 2-second question. Do you guys, you want to tackle that one? Are you good?
I think you can.
Okay. Yeah. You got me excited there, as a matter of fact. So So that is wonderful. You complete me. This is great. So no, are there any other questions? We have a couple in the back over here.
In terms of feedback from some of the nonprofits that we work with? Yes. Well, with our global partner, Save the Children, we're able to get feedback from them in terms of, impact and all those kinds of things. The local programs that we're involved in, for example, Calvin Klein's focus on Dress for Success, and then there's a arts program where I believe, I remember, I still can remember, when I was young, coming to a corporation was just fascinating. How many kids, particularly minority kids or poor kids, how many kids get a chance to go to a company, see a conference room, see what a boardroom looks like? So we believe in bringing kids to the organization and let them shadow some of our younger associates because they know how to really have a conversation with them. So that's a tricky one. We are doing, I will admit, more focus on trying to make the case to management why we should continue doing what we're doing, because that's where the dollars are, and we have to benchmark on what we're doing. But when it comes to the organizations, we really rely on those nonprofits that we're working with to give us feedback. Are we making a difference? What could we do better? For example, I'll give you one example that we had associates that got excited, oh, I want to mentor. And I would remind them, mentoring is very serious. You can't meet a young kid and get them excited and then don't show up and you can't make it. And that's more disappointment. So we've done away with mentoring in that respect, but we do it where we bring young people to our organization and we give them a lot of different experiences so that no matter what associate is available or if he or she is not available, we have some associates that are available and we don't disappoint our kids.
Do we have any other questions? One right here front.
I have a question that is actually for Courtney that builds on Deneen's being a voice for all children. It builds on Tanya's humility part of not wanting to go in and say, we already know that you have this established. How can we help you make it better? Mm-hmm. And building on Guy's partnership and collaboration. I actually understand all the PTA levels. I've been educated on the state and the national, trying to create a SEPTA, a special education PTA. That's not just for one school, for all of the schools in the district. But there's that humility part. Why do we need another PTA coming in to be a voice? And are you trying to take away from the PTAs that are established? So how do you inject the humility to create the collaboration, I guess, is understandable?
No, that's a great question. And really, that happens at our state-to-state level. I'd love to say that national is involved, but truly that is, we're hoping to build the leadership development of our state leaders to have that humility and to know what's needed in their community, getting back to the community. What are the community needs? Who are their advocates? And that is our level of support from the national level. But really hard for us to go into a state and help them figure out the dynamics and what's needed in their specific community, but helping them in the leadership path to be able to make thoughtful decisions that's right for their community.
Perfect. Well, guys, with that, our time is actually up. But if you don't mind, if you could join me in giving this phenomenal panel a big round.
You guys are great. Thank you.